On this episode of Designer Notes, we'll be discussing anxiety and regret when it comes to your watch purchases, how it affects how you purchase your watches, and how it actually doesn't matter. In a special news segment, we're going to be reviewing three different micro brands without any research, without looking up the brand. We're just going to check out one of your viewer comment suggestions because that's how this production is right now. Now, no script, no production at all. We just shoot and go willy nilly with it. And then finally, of course, we're going to discuss your viewer comments. Let's start off with a comment that a viewer sent in. A Hirschfield says that he's got a choice anxiety trying to select which one of the Zelos Eagle 2 that he wants to buy. I guess this is long gone. This is a day old, so probably he would have made his choice. And probably he's not really anxious about his purchase, but rather it's the choice of words. But I do recognize that some of you actually have this kind of anxiety. I guess he's trying to choose whether to go with the regular carbon dial or the meteorite dial, or if he's going to go with the Arctic or Cerakote bezel and crown model. So he has a choice to make. I helped him out with the choice, telling him that the Zelos that I reviewed only had one dial, no step to it. Okay, but this shows or undermines the importance of knowing yourself. You know, I'm pretty proud of all of my viewers here because if I look at my statistics and my dashboard and data, my audience is around the 25 to 40-year-old range, no, 45-year-old range. So I am assuming that most of you are mature enough to make your decisions, and these anxieties are really not anxieties at all, but just the decisions that needs to be made and trying to avoid regret. Now, sadly, many other people have an overwhelming view of such a regret. Let's all keep in mind. So let's not bury the lead here. What I'm trying to say is that these are watches. These are items. If you feel regret at buying them, you can always sell them or you can always give them away. What matters is that you have a lesson learned. You shouldn't avoid regret. Regret is in a way a pain mechanism built into us. We're all designers after all, and regret is a way for us to learn. When we feel regret, when we feel pain, we learn the lesson that we shouldn't do that thing again. Now, if we try to avoid or we build our lives around avoiding regret, then we actually are hindering our own growth as a person. Okay, not trying to be preachy here. It all factors into our watch purchases and watch collections. I was in a stream with Watch Dennis earlier this morning, and he was talking about the state of the collection videos and how those are actually interesting to people. And I know that you guys are interested in that, but I, for myself, I don't have such a willingness to make that video as of yet because I do not curate my watches into a collection as of yet. So I feel that that doesn't seem appropriate. But nevertheless, many people collect and they have a certain anxiety and weight to the decisions that they're making because they say, okay, this is part of my collection. I don't want to regret it in time. Okay, but why? Why are we putting so much importance in such? It's a collection. It's a collection. If you feel that a collection is not up to your taste, then change it. If you feel that you bought something that you should have not bought, then sell it again. It's just an item. We don't want to be anxious about these regrets. Now, the anxiety that comes in, or going back to the original topic, why we went into this whole diatribe in the first place, is that anxiety is something that we all feel as human beings. We shouldn't be overly emphasizing such feelings. If you're anxious, do something about it, then you're done. Then no more anxiety about your watches. You're free now to live on with your lives, enjoy your watches without any regret. And even if you regret it, that's fine too. You learn your lesson. Next time, you're not going to repeat it. It's very simple as such, right? So it's a matter of really putting things into perspective. Decades ago, I grew up in a society or in a generation that didn't have such a focus on that emotion. It's maybe, let's just put it, a simpler time wherein you don't have to think about these things, or whenever you have to think about them, it's just a few seconds in your life, and then you move on to the next thing that you need to prioritize with, or go on and moving to your towards your goal. Also, watch collecting is a goal unto itself, so that is good. You're striving for something, and that is not bad at all. We're also designed to look for a goal. But once we don't have any goal or we don't have any purpose, then the pursuit is meaningless. And that is why, also going back to my state of the collection video request, I understand that some are interested in my collection. I guess I'll be doing that in time as well. But it's a collection, or the word collection there is not the very collection or very word that I want to attach to my collection, if you say so. Because, say for example, there are people who collect watches or collect all chronographs, or they collect all of the references of such a model. They have a purpose. They have a goal in mind, and that's why they pursue it, and they build their collection around that. That's the kind of collection that I want. I want something that encompasses my taste, at least for the time, and then call it a collection. But I do recognize that there are certain watches in my collection, so to speak, will not fit the preference that I have. Say, for example, I have a couple of watches that were gifted to me. Those will never leave my possession. Are they part of the collection? Some will say yes, of course, definitely yes. I won't. I won't call it as part of my collection because it's not curated by me. It's given to me. It holds a significant value. I'm not going to sell it. It's going to remain in me, or at least in my family. At least that's what I hope it would be. But I'm also open to the notion that, hey, those things are not going to last forever, or those things are not going to stay in my possession also forever. So are they part of my collection? Maybe yes, maybe no. Right now, I feel that I don't have a collection in the first place. These are just things. I guess that's the designer in me that's not attaching so much emotion into these things. There are certain things that are weightier than others, but until I find myself to be reasonable enough to view such, then maybe I won't get, or I won't make a collection video as of yet. Okay, we went to a tangent there, but all in all, what I wanted to say is that um, watches are watches, collections are collections. We shouldn't be anxious about them, they're just objects. You shouldn't attach yourself or your emotions to it. Otherwise, when it's lost, it will be an inevitable heartbreak to you, an unnecessary heartbreak that shouldn't have not happened. Of course, I'm not denying that there's some value into that, investment into it. It's going to hurt nonetheless. But at least you're still a human being, learning your lesson and growing in the process. Okay, now on to another segment. Chris Greaves, 1468, mentioned that um, he wanted to have my opinion about microbrands, like American microbrands that are doing very cool things. He listed a few ones here. He listed Brew, Traska, and Trafford, right? And I added Nodus there for some reason. I don't know where. Did he mention Nodus? Okay. Oh yeah, he mentioned Nodus as well. So I picked three of those. So I left out Trafford for another day. I think Trafford is also very interesting, but I think I can mention that to another time. And of course, this is my channel. This is a watch pirate ship. Only the captain makes decisions, and the captain has decided that only three American microbrands are we're going to talk about this in this video. Now, the three microbrands that he mentioned there, Brew, Traska, and Nodus, all of them are really great American microbrands that are making a splash in the scene. And design-wise, they have something to offer. Well, at least two of them. But let me go into my uh, discussion here. So, what do I think about them? Brew, let's go to Brew. Brew, in my opinion, has been doing a lot of great stuff that is themed towards the coffee enthusiasm as well. So, it's watches and coffee mixed together, and you get Brew. And actually, that's a very fun take at watches because not only do they have a theme, but they also have some sort of practicality to them, especially the metric watches. I love those. And the mere fact that they have the 30 second bloom timer on it makes use of that chronograph appropriately, which is exactly what you need to have a perfect brew. It's just a fantastic idea. And not only that, I don't I didn't again we didn't make any research on this. I don't even know the name of the designer. Probably when I hear about it, it's familiar. But he is a designer and he designed these watches to look like or at least resemble anything coming from the coffee genre and the barista genre. And you could see that. You could see them on the grills, um, on the curves that he uses on his watches. Not only are they looking like they don't. Not only do they look like vintage style, but they also uh, look similar to the smooth and curvaceous nature of these coffee design, these equipments that they see. You know, the espresso machines and the different uh, paraphernalia used in the barista genre. I think Brew is a fantastic watch brand, and it's fun in a elegant and subtle way. Also, I actually it's one of the few micro brands that I really wanted to buy for myself because I asked them numerous times whether I could review their watches. They didn't reply at all, so I'm just now compelled to to just buy one of the metrics, but I'm still um, thinking about it because I'm I don't have disposable money. But anyway, one day I will own a brew for sure. But I'm still waiting for maybe I'm waiting for the proper watch design. I wanted to add the gold one, the all gold metric chronograph, but then SKX Mod sent me this all gold baby square mod, so this will be reviewing soon. So this is kind of occupying that space now in my taste. So that will have to wait. Now going to Traska. Traska, I think of the three is the most vanilla of all of them. I mean, sad to say that, but looking at their collection, it's mostly the same kind of diver cases that I see everywhere, and maybe the finishing is a little bit different, but I have to have Traska on my hand to evaluate that. But let's be honest, most of these finishings are almost interchangeable with each other, unless you're looking at a specific luxury house that finishes their own watches their own way. And even then, like say for example, Grand Seiko and the way they finish their watches compared to Menase, it's almost identical. Or even to some like Glasuta. So that's where all of the minute refinements matter. But on these levels, around the under $1,000 range, that really doesn't seem to matter. So what matters more is how interesting your designs are. But Traska, for some reason, does not appeal to me as much. If I look at their designs, just looking at some of the things that you could pull out from Google, it looks practically every other watch that I've seen, to be honest. So I'm not terribly interested with Traska. It will take some convincing for me to see that. And why not? If they could send their watches for me to review, look at it at a bit more detailed examination, then maybe it could change my mind, or I could pick out some interesting things to talk about it. But for now, no. It's not that I have like hundreds of thousands of viewers for me to matter in or to for me to be on their radar to review. But if that happens, I'll give them a chance. But for now, they're the least interesting of the three that was suggested to me. Now, Nodus, on the other hand, is a bit more interesting to me. They offer a wider range of watches. They have some divers. They have some fliegers in there. We can call them fliegers, aviation watches and whatnot. And they have varying designs, varying complications in between. And they even have destros, which is pretty cool. I think there's room for any collection to have a destro. Okay. And the good thing about the Nodus, all of these are American brands. Okay, that's what at least the viewer says. Traska, I'm not sure if it's American, but I think it seems like it's American. But Nodus even offers a design yourself collaboration with them. So that is a big plus to me. I would love to have that. I actually submitted my application to them. I filled out their form. I have a basic idea of what I wanted to do, and let's see if they even email me back. Well, it's a Saturday, so I don't know if they're going to be email. And then American football season is winding down, so everybody's busy, I guess. But Nodus has some really interesting designs. They seem to have some restraint also when it comes to their designs. They don't go all the way out. And they have a really good way of playing with colors and their light play on their bezels. I like that. So that's another thing. They can also offer watches with DLC coating, so which is another plus. I think the designers customization and all of that visual variety is in Nodus, and I wouldn't mind um, reviewing one of their watches. I may buy one of them at some point, but not as much as I would like to buy a Brew metric. Let's just say that. And they're a little bit pricey too. Keep in mind, many of these American brands are a little bit pricier because of the labor that's being used in the United States. It's a lot more expensive. The human labor there, so it's a little bit more expensive compared to others. But at the very least, like Nodus regulates their own watches themselves. So they don't just buy these mass-produced calibers. They also regulate them in-house in America. So that's a plus. You're they even I think I saw that they even have certificates of proof that they regulated the watch, so you could see how much it's gaining or losing seconds per day, and that's a big plus whenever someone will do that. I actually wanted to do that, but nobody here in Aruba is going to do that for me. So that's another limitation of my location here. But I appreciate that. And you too, when you see someone that's really passionate about watches and they are willing to go through the lens of employing someone to regulate the watch and to assemble it in the United States or in at whatever location it may be, that's a plus. It's an extra cost, but that's a plus. They know that they care about their watches, and that's something that I appreciate. So that's the three micro brands that we're going to discuss today. What about you? You have comments for sure. I cannot shut you up. You guys are a loud bunch, so I know for sure you're going to comment, and I'm welcome them. I welcome them. Let's make a discussion, and maybe let's make another video about that, or suggest more micro brands for me to review unscripted. Maybe that's what we're going to call this segment now. Unscripted. Microbrands, unscripted. Something like that. Okay? Let's do that. And now it's time for your viewer comments. Okay, we want to breeze through all of these. I want to make this show, this podcast. Melvin Ramirez, yes, this is a podcast. Okay, you commented earlier about it, didn't include it here. Make a podcast. This is a podcast. It's just not consistent, but I call it a podcast. YouTube calls it a podcast, so it is a podcast. But it's just inconsistent. I want to make it as consistent as possible, so I want to make it as easy as possible anytime. Like right now, I'm doing this in my living room during the day while I normally would film at night, right? So that's what we're going to do here, and hopefully it sticks. And also a little channel update, since I can pretty much do whatever I want with this channel. I wanted to just briefly update you on what's in the pipeline. Of course, I've already shown you these. These are the new SKX mods that we're going to be reviewing very, very soon, or hopefully in the next few weeks, because they're really good. And some YouTubers are already talking about them, but I feel that I have a certain panache to my videos, and we can do it the watch pirate way, unlike the others out there. But they're great. They're great reviews. They're great watches as well. But they're really built for me, so I want to make that something special. I'm putting myself down to something special. But anyway, that's in the pipeline. We also have these. These are from Tempo Mat in Spain, and these are some really good quality watch rolls, as you can see there. Yeah, can I see it? Yeah, there you go. As you can see there, and we need to review that. This is something that would interest many of you. And they sent us their stuff. I'll make a small video about them. They're really good. There are some room for improvement here and there with their other offerings, but their watch rolls are tremendous. I love that. That's another one. And then we have Vario that's coming up also. So this is another good one, another small one. As you may know, I like small watches. I've grown to love them, but this one is really sweet. My wife is also very, very happy with this one, and she's wearing this for numerous times now during the week. So that's another one. This is another eccentric and quirky watch from Grab It Thin, the Focus Scope. This is very, very interesting, guys. The thing about this, I'm supposed to review this back in December, but I didn't get it in December, and then there's like a big backlog of watches, and a general backlog of shipments in Aruba, and it didn't get released in time. So I finally have a prototype, and I'm going to review that as well. It's a little design centric watch, and it reminds me of another special watch that I hold dear to my heart, and that I'm going to dive into the review. And I also have a Vicaria somewhere. Where is it now? Where is it? No, it's not here. I have a Vicaria, and I already shot a Baltony bronze diver. That is also in the pipeline. I just need to edit it. Come on, guys. No pressure, okay? I just need to edit it, and hopefully that will be done soon. So finally, on to your viewer comments. Maybe we should we like get the intro again? No? Whatever. Viewer comments. JK Master 1968 says that he's talking about the Bronzo Nerede from Venezianico, that the rubber band, since the lugs are rigid, actually lug to lug is huge because the rubber goes almost straight away from the case and only then bends on the wrist, which is kind of true. So you have to consider that whenever you're buying one of these rubber strapped Neredes or any other integrated Neredes, integrated rubber strapped watches, because sometimes those rigid straps tend to flare out, and that extends the impression of the lug distance, and then making the watch a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be. So if you have a smaller wrist, that is also a consideration. He is right. So you have to make sure that these rubber straps are flexible enough and would hold its shape in order for it to not look bigger than it's supposed to be. And yeah, so that's a valid criticism there from a viewer of the narrated Bronzo. Still in the narrated Bronzo, uh, Vla MRX says, I actually like this, but the wrist is slightly smaller than yours, 6 inch, so I feel like the lugs might be too long for me to pull off. Okay, Vla M or Vlam RX is not going to be banned for the show for noticing my wrist, because he's not trying to, you know, he's not trying to shame me for my inappropriate or inadequate wrist, but rather he too, or she, maybe it's just she, I don't know, can relate because he or she has a 6 inch wrist, which is way smaller than mine. So no, definitely no, don't buy this narrator. This is the only channel that you're going to find that a sponsor is being rejected. This is the only channel wherein its host will actively tell its sponsor, no, don't buy their watch. Because it's true, don't buy it because it's going to be really big on your wrist. And this is not a fault of Benishanico, but this is really just because it's not gonna fit the wearer. And yeah, you just have to accept that. Or eat a bit more and then you'll grow into an 8-inch wrist after a few McDonald's or a few Big Macs. Anyway, one viewer commented on the Baltony Explorer. Cooper 8785 says, had it been available in quartz movement, then I would definitely have been buying one. Okay, this is a peculiar comment because you don't often see this, that someone would prefer quartz over mechanical movement, especially for this kind of case, that Explorer case. Okay, I can see that. Maybe you want a much lower price point for this kind of simple watch, and maybe you want more accuracy, then by all means go in quartz. That's the one thing that I want to always tell people who starting to look to build their own collection or getting started with watches. Don't be too shy against quartz watches. Don't shy away from those, because those are actually really good watches. They're more accurate than your mechanical watches, and you have a much wider playing field. You have more options when you consider quartz, because oftentimes, if not all of us, are buying these watches for the fashion accessory that it has become now. If you wanted to have a really capable wearable device, then you'd probably go with an iPhone or Apple Watch or one of those Garmin thingamajigs, or God forbid an Android watch, which is still, I hear some bad stuff about those. Otherwise, you want something that's a little bit more on the fashion side but has some horological weight to it, go with quartz. There's no shame with that. I reserved this comment a little bit from Steve Moreno because I wanted to address this specifically. And Steve, our honorary watch pirate, as who's honored in our Watch Pirate Hall of Fame, by the way. He has a comment because he's been a viewer for quite some time now. He's always commenting on almost every video that we have. And here's what he says: with the challenges that you have that come with your location, which is Aruba, for those of you who don't know, Aruba, that affects the YouTube algorithm, as well as not having the numbers or budget to get a lot of new launches in the metal, what do you think about having a once a week video series where you do a review and history of pieces that your subscribers send over to you from their own collections? That would give you a large supply of content that a large audience may find interesting. All right, that's not a bad idea. Actually, I've already had a couple of viewers who emailed me expressing the same idea as well. They even wanted to even send me some of the G-Shocks that they've been buying. So they would buy a G-Shock and ship it here first, and then for me to ship it back to them. That was the idea. However, the problem with that is it would take around $40 to $60 to ship a watch from here back to the United States, which is quite a significant tax write-up or significant expense that I'd be doing. Actually, it could still work if we really wanted to do that, but there's another wrinkle to that plan, if you think about it. First, if that would happen, I would use that as a tax write-up for the channel, as this is how it is registered here. Whatever expense that the channel uses for promotional purposes or for the videography, then it can be written off as a tax deductible, as an expense of the company, but expense of the channel. But then it's not going to be 100% credited, and you have to book it each and every time, which is quite a few trips for my wife, because my wife's the one that picks up all of these packages and then sends them out as well whenever we have to. Now that's a significant labor for us, and at the same time it's an expense that right now the channel couldn't hold, because you have to understand about the cash flow of things. Now the second part of that is that viewer needs to really trust me that I'm going to send back the watch to them, because for someone who has just over 20,000 subscribers, I could easily shut down the channel tomorrow, and then you won't see your watch again, and then now you're out with your GA 2100 that's worth 80,000, not 80,000, $80. So, and that viewer would now be traumatized by the watch piracy, the literal watch piracy of this channel. So that's not gonna work. The only time that it's going to work is that when the viewer is actually here and I could meet up with him, which has happened before, and that is a viable option. Actually, I need to go back and message that viewer. He has a lot of really good watches, and maybe it's time to message him again. Now the second part of this question is that I will have enough of a large supply of content for me to work on. Well, the thing is, now I have a large supply of content to work on, and this seems to be not slowing down, because each and every time I finish a watch, it seems that there's 5 more in the pipeline that needs to be done. So I am not having a problem with getting watches to review. It's just a matter of actually trying to review them. However, that doesn't mean that the YouTube algorithms favor these watches. Like, okay, say for example, Vario here. Okay, Vario is maybe not a good example, because Vario is a very well-known microbrand, and yeah, the algorithms favor them a little bit more. SKX Mods has been getting some tractions too, but when you use this as a Casio watch, as a tag on your video, it gets traction. So this also is very favorable to review. However, like say for example this new microbrand called Graviton, and any other new microbrands for that matter, and the Constellar is also another good example. They don't have any footprint on the algorithm as of yet, so I will be the first one to review it. And if Jody for some reason also reviews this watch, then my video will be suggested right after Jody's review, so that then everything everyone gets the views, you know? But without that, I'm merely just relying on you viewers to actually support that video and support that microbrand. Then the algorithms will try its best to serve it to others, and then it's still not as favorable as a Casio or as a Tissot for that matter. In fact, if you look at my videos, my most popular videos are Casio, GShocks, and Tissot. Those are the videos that I need to make. But I'm here talking about microbrands, talking about Steve Moreno's comments, which is not bad. It's just not gonna work. You know? Especially here in the island, it's very hard to get these watches. But nice try, and thank you for helping out. It's possible, so long as the person is here in the island and less of an expense. And for sure, they're not. I'm not. They could hunt me down because they know where I live. What you want makes a suggestion also. He's hinting here at the previous show wherein we talked about the watch flipping culture. He has a point here. First and foremost, nobody is getting rich with watch flipping microbrands because you're just gaining a few dollars on a pound here to flip these watches. So you need to hoard a significant amount of really value retaining microbrands for you to even get any profit at all, to make it worth your while. But at the same time, he mentions here something that's really interesting. It says that from sketch to the average production of a microbrand, it takes around 18 to 24 months to reach its prototype. And without taking that into consideration, this might seem to bear the influence of the quantity of the final product. And designing a watch down to the production, it takes quite a bit. So the biggest costs at the end of the product will be weighed against the projected sales. So for a microbrand, this can be the difference between success and bankruptcy. So he's saying that there's so many costs and time that goes into these microbrands that pricing them much lower than we want to in order to combat watch flipping would not make sense because it might make the watch go bankrupt in the first place. Constellar is a good example of that. It's not that they went bankrupt. I don't know if they ever did, but it took them 3 tries for them to get a really good and sellable watch. Now, we don't know what their actual financial circumstances are, these microbrand owners, but I can imagine it would be quite nerve-wracking for you to have your product, which you spend thousands of dollars on, to be not accepted in the crowdfunding phase. So that is the heartbreak that comes with these kinds of projects. But like what you once said, these are the things that we don't normally, as viewers and as consumers of these microbrands, don't think about. And my personal experience by trying to launch my own microbrand, it's really hard to do, although the resources are just there. So I may need to work a little bit more extra here and there, grovel over the microbrands for more watches, and then try and resell these, so to build capital and then build my own watch brand. That's what I've been trying to do, but yeah, life gets in the way sometimes, or many times. Here's a comment from the Skip the Swiss Calibers content that I made, the video that I made. Kevin H 5349 says that his blood pressure always starts to go up when he sees that, because many of these high-end, even higher-end watch brands use Celita or ETA or Asian movements. That probably costs just a few bucks. And instead of charging us, the consumer, $500, they charge us up to $4,000. He even used Bell & Ross there as an example. And that is true. It's not that hard to understand though why they're gonna do that, because one, you need R&D to pull it off. Two, you need to devote your costs for distribution also. So it's not unheard of that a luxury brand, would charge upwards to 40 to 80% of their cost over their watches. And I see that because I receive these luxury brands from our Shiva store, and I can see that. That's the whole nature of the game. If they don't do that, then they won't be in the business or continue to be in business to sell these watches. That is a necessary evil, so to speak. And that's why the microbrand arena is very valuable, because this is where we watch enthusiasts get the values, or get the qualities and the features that we want from those luxury brands in a much more affordable price. Because you've heard it before, cut cut off the middleman, because these micro brands sell directly to you, and that saves you a lot of costs. But even there, we talked about earlier about American watch brands. There's an additional cost to uh, those manufacturing processes, because in America they don't produce all of their parts there. Maybe some of the screws, some of the straps, some of the buckles are imported from China. That's very common. Even the cases and all, whatever part that you may pick. That's why if you want to have the most savings, you'd rather go in China. But then you run the risk of not having them regulated or inspected, and that's where Zelos and other watch brands come into play. So you have to do your research. Your micro brands need to have such value for you. But that's just the game. But you see, if everybody tries to lower their prices, all of these brands lower their prices, and it becomes a tug of war, then all of these brands will not stay afloat. Look at one example is the EV market in China. They started to challenge Tesla with the EV by doing it the Chinese way, which is the Asian way, Chinese, Asian, whatever, of lowering your markups in favor of mass production, in favor of raising the quantities, and then with more things to sell, the more revenue, not profit, no, more revenue that you get. That's the what we Asians are known for. Tubong lugaw for those who know Tagalog. But the consequence of that is now there's a lot of EV brands and companies in China with very little to no QC at all. The quality just plummets. So you have to be really choosy which brands you would go for. And even if you choose those really good and reliable brands, either you're going to pay an extra premium, or you won't be able to get them at all, or they won't stay afloat because, or they won't stay in business because they can't sustain such demands without losing quality or money. And all of them suffered, or many of them suffered, many of them closed because of this kind of mentality. So you have to play it right. For now, the watch industry is still smart enough to not go that route. So let's see, well, what will happen. But for sure, the values are there in the microbrand scene, which is a relatively new player in the horology market. Andrew Hannum is commenting as against the ETA 2824 as being overrated. There's major design flaws he outlined in his comments, and you see, that's the thing. You're paying a premium for a Swiss caliber when the same basic thing can be done by Miyota or Seiko Movement. And by my experience, it's also not relevant because none of these has been needing a service. Now that actually has an extra cost to it, especially when it's a Swiss movement. You're paying a premium also when you needed to service a Swiss movement. With Asian calibers, it's even more viable to replace the whole caliber itself than to service it. And even if you want to service it, it's much cheaper than a Swiss caliber. And like what iPocket Rocket commented on, he says here that many of his watches, he's been owning watches for 20 years now, and most of the watches that needed service or needed some repair to it are actually the Selitas. Which is quite remarkable. I don't know why or how he's wearing these watches, but that's his experience. He didn't even need to service any of his Miyotas or his Seiko calibers at all, because they're just that good. And here's my thing about these. If you have enough watches to rotate, it's very unlikely that you'll need to service them also. It's the likelihood, the probability of you breaking it, wearing it down is much less, because there's much more watches to spread around the torture and and abuse. So there's more time for you to actually enjoy the watch itself, rather than just be worried about the caliber. Again, we talked about anxiety. These are anxieties that watch enthusiasts shouldn't be worried about. Yes, okay, if the watch doesn't work, then you just have to suck it up, send it for service, repair it. If you're not willing to do that, especially consider the high cost of it for those higher end watches, then maybe watches aren't for you. Maybe those Rolexes and those Vacherons are not for you. These are parts of the game, so to speak. So you just have to accept that. And that's the nature of these antiquated watches. And that's why the microbrand scene is much more interesting, because that's one more thing that you don't need to think about. You don't need to think about them, because you just accept that these Miyotas and these NH34s and 35s are there. And if the watch brand wants to be a little bit more upper end, higher end when it comes to their impression, they go with the Selita and Swiss movements. Because let's be honest too, despite us saying that this doesn't matter, that is not really part of my choice, the overall impression is still the same. It's still that the Swiss are noted or known for their higher quality, and that is not changing anytime soon. But more and more people are aware of the values that they can get when they go with the Asian calibers. Now, before we move on to the very last segment of our show, as always with Mr. Zelos, let me do something that I have never done before, and probably is never done before in the history of horology. That is committing horological genocide. Now, what do I mean? Well, Matthew Dower, 5383, Reese Brookhoven, 5962, Oren B. Video, and Oak Tree, 1628 are all banned from the show, because their sin and their crime is to take note of my wrist. One thing is clear out of the almost 400 videos that I've made, is that nobody is allowed forever to make fun of my wrist. And if you do, you will be forever banned from Horology, or whatever I see you fit that I ban you for that particular moment in time. For this one, all of you are banned from the show. There was one that almost did not get banned. It's John Swick, 7108. He says, "Wait, do you actually ban people for commenting on your wrists? That's a little silly, don't you think? Not familiar with the internet? Hope that's a joke." Well, one thing you should know, another thing that you should know about this channel is nothing is a joke. When everything is a joke, then nothing is a joke. I'm not a sensitive person. I try to tell everyone that this is my experience. This is me. I don't care what you guys say. I don't know. I don't even know why I'm doing this podcast. But one thing is sure: you are not allowed to make fun of my wrist. John Swick, you are banned. Also from the show for 55 seconds. You can join the others as this dictator of this watch pirate ship has forever proclaimed that you are all banned from this show. Now let's move on to Mr. Zelos. Honestly, I never understand these movement snobs. There is literally nothing wrong with the Japanese movement in a microbrand. Yes, there are micros that use Swiss movements too, but that's not the point. You don't need a Swiss movement to be a quality watch. Go grab yourself a Prospex Seiko and try to argue with me that's not a quality watch with a fine movement. Go ahead, I'll wait. Oh, and you movement snobs really should investigate the cost of repairing Swiss movements versus an Asian one. Get back to me on that too, after you scrape your jaw off the floor when you get the bill. Ask me how I know. Wise and sage words from Mr. Zeros. He has suffered and experienced all of these things for our benefit so that we don't make the same mistake. That is, putting too much importance in Swiss movements, especially the ETAs and the Selitas. Thank you, Mr. Zelos, and thank you for your service. And thank you for everyone who's been listening and who's not banned from this show as of yet. I know many of you are trying to do so, but I'm getting a little bit more picky when it comes to that. But nevertheless, comment and discuss down below. You know that I pay attention to these messages because I have no life. All I do is drink rum and beer all the time, while laughing at your comments of your efforts to be banned from the show. So try your best. See you next time. Now to end this segment, or before we end this segment, we want to do this thing